Hello, Xers and interwebers. Welcome to another episode of Naive in the 90s, the podcast. My name is Emily, and I'm your host. I was a 70s baby, an 80s kid, and a 90s troublemaker. Let's just jump into today's episode. So, on my last episode, it was actually only about 5 minutes long, because that week our little fur puppy dog, 11, I call her a puppy, but she was 11. She had gotten sick and we had brought her to the vet, and she had been put on multiple medications, given a couple times a day. She was very, very ill, although her initial prognosis was optimistic. So I didn't really have an episode sketched out or outlined or recorded for last time, so it was just a quick reading. So that week, our little baby girl, she did improve vastly. She, by the end of last week, was 100% herself, although she was still gaining weight back because she had rapidly lost a bunch. She was improving, and so much so that this past weekend I actually recorded a episode about teen pregnancy with two guests, two of my actual friends / characters from my book Naive in the 90s. And it was great. It was a great conversation. It was about an hour and a half. And when we were done, the recording had not processed correctly, and it simply disappeared. So as much as I was on it for this week, to be all prepared, to finally have guests, to have a good topic, that disappeared. And then, not even 24 hours after that whole debacle, our little girl started to take a turn for the worst. We got her to the vet and found out that she had stomach cancer and what looked to be cancer also in her small intestines. It didn't look operable, and they put us on palliative care for her. It didn't work. Within hours, she declined super, super fast, stopped drinking, stopped eating. She lost the use of her back legs, and ultimately we called our kids in to be with her, and then eventually we had to make the call to let her go. She was suffering. She never cried once in her life, her entire 11 years that we had her, because we were her first owners. She was born in a shelter, and then she came home with us. So, she had never cried ever, ever, and she was crying in pain, and like I said, she couldn't even use her back legs, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful, and we are still just a couple days out from this, reeling from this loss. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, pets are just pets, but in this case, no. We don't look at any of our pets as just pets. They are our family members, and this little girl was a huge, huge part of our family. Her energy was just so big. She was just such a major part of us. So, given that, and the fact that I did have an episode all recorded. It just needed to be edited, and the recording they just didn't process, and it just never showed up. So that's unfortunate and very upsetting. And now I don't now I don't have an episode for you guys. And we have to record the teen pregnancy one over again. It was so good. The conversation, you guys, it was so good. It was with two of my friends slash characters, Esther and Lily, and they just shared a lot of their story and of their souls. Some really good advice for teens that are finding themselves in the same predicament, and for young parents who find themselves in a difficult predicament. They really had some great advice. So we are going to try to record that over. Hopefully, the recording will record. I'm so upset about it. I just can't even. So yeah. After I saw that we had lost the recording, I was starting to script the movies episode that I had talked about previously before our baby got sick. And I got about halfway through it. It's just and then we lost our little girl, and I can't. I just can't. I don't care about movies right now. I just kind of don't care about much. But yeah, so I'm just gonna throw in a passage here. Probably gonna do the opening letter of the book, which is the letter I wrote to my teenage self before rereading my diaries and my journals, just to, have something to put out today, because I'm not okay. I am not okay. My world got a lot darker with the loss of my grandma a couple months ago, and now our dog, who was my soul child. And yeah, so sorry again for the mismatch and just no structure here, and now my crying babble. This is not naive or the 90s, and I'm sure not really what anybody came here to listen to, but yeah, that's what we were dealt. So thank you again for showing up. I do apologize again, and hopefully the next episode in 2 weeks will actually be a real episode. And yeah, thank you. May 2019. Dear teenage self, here we go, little one. It's been almost 30 years since I've seen you, been you, and honestly, I don't even really remember that last time. You kind of just faded into adulthood with no acknowledgement or even a second thought. In fact, if anything, I'm pretty sure the passing of you was celebrated. Sad, isn't it? You were a major part of who I was, and ultimately who I am. You were a huge impact on how I view myself, how I interact with others, how I accept and receive love, as well as how I give it and how I protect myself. Yet somehow, even though you were so important, you've been lost, ignored, picked on, and in many cases blamed for the insecurities and inner issues that have plagued my life ever since you were the one calling the shots. Now in my 40s, excuse me while I have a moment saying that, in my 40s, Now in my 40s, I'm starting to heal and have realized that our teen years are so very important and pivotal in shaping who we are as adults, as well as how we interact with the world around us. From making friends, choosing lovers, career choices, and opportunities. Everything. So here we are, nearly 3 decades after the first words were written in our diary, ready to meet again. I'm ready to see you for real, through your own eyes, your own perspective for the first time in a very long time. And now, through a different lens of life with a whole new view of the world and ourselves. I will tell you, I am honestly a little scared and nervous. You and I weren't the best of friends. We've had a lot of issues along the way. But I am now here, looking to understand you and maybe in turn understand myself a little bit better. Here we go, little one. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. We have some catching up to do. Okay, so I think that's gonna about do it for us this week. I just, I don't have much to say, and I'm just sad. I'm just sad and really can't think of much more than how much I miss my fur child, and just how life can be really super unfair sometime. Yeah, so thank you for sticking with me. The letter is just, a letter. I do know that I really was nervous before rereading my diaries and journal from so long ago, because I am a completely different person. Reading those, it's like, oh God, this girl is so whiny, she's so needy, why is she like this? Why can't she just calm down and let life move along at the speed at which it's moving? But at the same time, I know now that I had a lot of trauma and a lot of unmet needs from childhood, and not that was anyone's fault. My parents did the best that they could, but I definitely needed something. I don't know what it was. My parents were very about structure. Not that they didn't love us, because they definitely did, and I knew they did. But they were definitely about the structure and, getting us to the right path for adulthood. And that structure kind of overshadowed any real, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say connection, but yeah, it overtook everything. Them trying to, get us ready, us kids, especially I was the first one, and the only girl, so it was kind of an experiment. They were super young when they had me. I think they were 20. They were 19 when they got pregnant, 20 when they had me, and even though that sounds like supposedly an adult, that is not adults. You are not an adult until mid to late 20s, honestly. You have no idea what's going on until then. You think you do, but you don't. And so it's hard for me sometimes to accept that I do have, emotional trauma, I guess, neglect. I don't know. It's not, because he didn't neglect us, but I definitely, as a kid, I needed more. And as a teen, I was really, really searching for that anywhere. I was super sensitive and super easy to fall in love. And just really wanted to accept anything that I imagined was love. And it didn't do well. So rereading and going back and knowing that I was going to reread those diary entries and what a mess I was when I was a teenager. It was very daunting. It really was. I was excited because I knew that there were going to be some really fun entries in there, but it was a little scary because I knew just how messed up I was. Um, but yeah, so I think that's really all I have. Um, this entire episode was just me randomly babbling. There is no no structure. No structure. Oh, God. Um no outline, no nothing. Just me babbling. So yeah. I guess that's it. And I'm supposed to be recording this weekend with Anne and Amy. We are going to do a special episode that's coming up about Chrissy, who, if you read the book, you know who that is. And that'll be out in a couple weeks in February for her anniversary. But yeah, I'm gonna try to also get back on a recording or on whatever. My brain is not working, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna try to get my call with Esther and Lily to get that redone, because it was so good. And in the meantime, I will continue to work on my solo episodes. I have a movies one. I have one about sexual assault, which I'm sure will be triggering for some, but it's something that we need to talk about because, you know, in the 90s, and I know this sounds weird, but in the 90s, it was a lot more accepted that things were going to happen. The toxic environment in which us girls and boys were raised in led to a lot of things that weren't great. So that's going to be a whole episode, and it's going to compare how the toxicity of back then did lead to not only a lot of assaults and harassment, but also how it was deemed almost normal and just a rite of passage by most of us girls, because that's how we were raised in the society that we were in at the time. It was just over hormoned and over masculine and over toxic and just super sad. Super sad. I just watched a show, and there's this whole storyline about this girl who this guy made advances at, and like he put porn on in front of her. She was like, what the hell? And then she laughed it off, and she is back in another room with him looking at things. They're just touring this house, and he just pushes up against her, like, and kind of like dry humps her back a little bit. And it's just, from there, he actually gets removed from the organization. And it was interesting to see, because that I don't know if this is a laughable moment, but all of that's pretty normal. I don't actually know any girls that I grew up with that weren't in some kind of situation like that. I mean, so we're gonna explore that in a whole episode of its own, because oh boy, how any of us are healthy and normal is beyond me. So thank you again for sticking with me and listening to this babble. I realize there is no kind of I can't even, I don't know. There's just no structure, just no point to this entire episode. So yeah, thank you, and come back in 2 weeks. We'll have a topic. I will hopefully not be just a crying, bawling mess of snot and tears. And Yeah. All right. So thank you. And I guess peace and love, my dudes.